Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of bookology. What's that? That's the study of books and reading and notebooks and writing mixed with mindful practices and creativity to create lives we love. Here, you'll find episodes exploring the reading and writing life and how they can make our actual lives better. You'll get book recommendations and notebooking prompts around particular themes, and you'll even hear from authors and special guests who can fuel our reading and writing hearts and help us take inspired action in our own daily practices. So, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie, and I'll be here all year long with tips, tricks, and hacks to make reading and writing a part of your life. I hope you had a wonderful start to your new year. Whatever you wanted or hoped that night moving into the next day to be, I hope you got it. I also hope that you listened to my last episode where I talked about my 2025 notebook stack, and you've got your stack ready to go too. Perhaps you've chosen a one-word theme. Like me, maybe you choose monthly themes, like I chose intuition this month. Or maybe you choose one word for the entire year to ground your 365 days ahead of you. Maybe also you've chosen some intentions. Now, I don't know if you call them New Year's resolutions, if you call them your big goals, or if you just call them your upcoming intentions, whatever language you use. I'm wondering if you've done that. I'm wondering if you do that. I'm wondering if you value that at all. Now, if you have already done those things, then congratulations. You are ready to move into a new year, a new season of life with purpose. But if you haven't yet, if you haven't quite figured out a method that works for you, if you haven't just gotten into the whole let's plan the next year kind of mindset, this episode is for you. So I had plans to engage in one of those really relaxing, wonderful goal setting sessions, intention setting sessions that you see on social media and Instagram. I mean, I see some couples who go away for the whole weekend and put a big giant wall calendar on the wall and plan out the year. And while part of me wants to do that, part of me is actually very overwhelmed at looking that far out. So, like I said, I had plans to have this nice session, perhaps at a coffee shop, but more likely in my basement at my desk with a cup of coffee and a candle lit to think about what I want 2025 to look like. In reality, it didn't happen. Before I even got to that point, I stumbled upon what I think is the greatest way to choose intentions or to choose goals for a period of your life because it is also a mental health boost, a mental health relief, therapy on the paper that naturally leads to thinking what you want your goals, your intentions, your resolutions to be. Now, honestly, this is great for choosing goals in the coming year, but it's perfect for choosing goals, choosing intentions for any time of the year, any new season of life, anytime you want a fresh start, or like me, anytime you just had a dumpster fire of a day and you needed a mental reset. So save this episode. Maybe you've already chosen your goals now, but later, if something comes up and you need to help get yourself out of a spiral, this will do it, along with helping you set your goals for 2025. So, not too long ago, I was having one of those days. In fact, I feel like I was having one of those weeks. If it could go wrong, it would. If I could get frustrated easily, I would. Right? It was just moment after moment of moment. of things that just weren't going right. You've had one of those days, right? Where you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, even though you try not to. And that feeling, that mindset, that attitude just sticks with you for the entire day. So you go to bed feeling even more cranky than when you woke up. I was having a couple of those days in a row. And on one of the last days that I was behaving and acting like that, I woke up and again, I was in a bad mood. I was in a bad mood and I was cranky and I thought, I just don't want to take this into the day. So what do? I get out my morning page notebook like I do most mornings. But this time, I did something that I try not to do. And I've talked about this on the podcast before. I try not to be so negative in my morning page notebook. I try not to dump only the things that are bothering me, only the things that I'm wrestling with on the page, because that's not the kind of impression or legacy that I want to leave in my notebook. But honestly, dumping all of that out, everything that's wrong, everything that I'm angry about, everything that just rubs me the wrong way, for me, it really does feel like therapy. And so when I woke up and I felt so awful, and it was only literally 4:30 in the morning, I knew I had to go to my notebook. It is my go-to mental health strategy. But I did something that I've never done, and I'm not quite sure why I did it, but it just came out. And so here's what I wrote at the very top page of my journal on that cranky morning. If how you spend your days is how you spend your life, then I am screwed. Yes, I actually wrote that. I said, I am in Groundhog Day. And as much as I love routine, this kind of Groundhog Day is not cutting it for me. Here is my current reality of what is going wrong. And I proceeded to list bullet by bullet by bullet a bed to bed entry of all of the things that I did not like about my life at the moment. Negative Nelly. Yes. For example, bullet one, I wake up tired. I wake up in physical pain. I wake up and remember something that I am angry at. I come downstairs to find an item that gosh darn puppy has chewed overnight. I come downstairs and I see the clutter I didn't clean up, the dishes that I didn't get to in the sink. I try to start out strong and I move my body and do yoga and get to my journal, but then I forget my affirmations or I forget the certain stretches that I know I should do for PT and I get down on myself. I chase work throughout the day. I want to do fun things and I don't. Then I find another chewed up something or another from the dog. I don't really focus on dinner, so dinner feels quite pathetic. I worry about what I didn't do during the day, and bedtime is coming up. I got to do the dishes. I got to do the laundry, the never ending dishes, the never ending laundry. I fall asleep, not very easily. I know that I'm going to wake up 39 times in the middle of the night, but I go to bed anyway, and I wake up and I repeat. That was literally the entry, save a couple of personal things that I don't necessarily want to say on the podcast, that basically makes me look so negative. Like, I've got a great life. I'm healthy. The kids are healthy. I have a home. I have dogs. I can feed them. I can manage all of the things going on. I've got a great job and I get to do this podcast. And yet I was still a dumpster fire for a couple of days in a row. So I listed everything. I dumped it all out and I sat there. I sat there and thought, what the heck do I do next? You know the research on writing. You know the research on mental health. What are you supposed to do next, Steph? Do we do some affirmations? Do we do some visualization? Do I imagine what my ideal day would look like instead of this one that I seem to be having on repeat? I knew I had to do something. But I also know that from the research, if you just start to write an ideal day, a manifestation, a visualization of what you want your life to look like, while that does have merit because you're trying to shift yourself into a different mindset and a different vibration, your subconscious knows when something is reachable or not. So I couldn't just flip the page and say, let's rewrite the day. Let's have the best day of my life today. Because deep down in my mind, I knew that was not going to happen, right? Someone was not magically going to clean up my house. My dogs are not magically going to be behaved. The issues that I had in my life were not magically going to go away. And so since I knew I can't believe in that, I couldn't grapple with it, I knew that was not going to be effective for me, at least in this moment, in this time. So I did something that I've never done. I kept writing for a little bit of how I felt and what I wanted to do. And I said to myself on the page, I need to figure this out. I need to figure out a new routine, yes, but just a way to stop this terrible groundhog loop that I have been in for the last couple of days because it's not me and it's not who I want to be. And so I said, I'm going to try something new. I want to make a new list. And on this new list, I am going to go bullet by bullet on that bed to bed dumpster fire list. And I'm going to write at least one thing I could do to change it or to make it better. And that's what I did. So, for example, let me just read down some of what I wrote. I basically had the dumpster fire day on one side of the page. And then when I flipped the notebook page to the back side, I had a list of things that could attack or counteract that dumpster fire day. Things like this. And this is a long laundry list, and I won't read them all because I had quite a bit. But here's some of the things I said. Try a new neck pillow. Get a weighted blanket again. Make the dogs sleep on the floor and get a dog bed. Plan some sort of fun thing throughout the day. Take a couple of hours and declutter the house. Make a fix-it list. Put a visual of my morning routine that I don't want to forget. Make sure I put important projects on the calendar so I don't feel stretched for time in the afternoon. Start walking the dogs so they stop chewing things. Plan my weekly meals and vow to cook at least 1 or 2 or 3 times a week. Create a budget. Work on feelings of abundance around my financial life. Have someone help me come in and clean if I'm having a rough week. Get a sleep app. Get a white noise machine. Get a little notebook and end the day with gratitude before I go to bed. Start a Sunday planning routine. Right? So those were just a handful of them. Like I said, I had a laundry list of things that went wrong. I wanted a longer laundry list of things that I could do. And something really wonderful did start to happen as I moved down that second side of the page. I felt better. I felt better. I felt like I was in control. I was reminded that I am creating these days and I can get out of them. And it was a nice way to end a therapeutic journaling session that started with negativity and ended with positivity. Because the research also shows, right, that what we put on paper and what we feel deeply as we put on paper becomes magnified. Right? And we know that, and we have to move through some of those deep emotions on the page. But the emotion that you leave the notebook session with, that last thing on the page, we do want to try to shift into a more positive direction if we were a bit negative in that particular session. Whether you just write with a kind word for yourself, if you write a positive affirmation, or like me, I actually shifted the second page into thinking more positively. I loved having that list. I loved seeing, okay, I could do one of those things right now. I could hop on Amazon and buy myself a neck pillow. I could get out a list and make a fix it list of things around the house that were bothering me. So I stopped thinking about them all the time. And when I had an hour, I could just go to the list and do something. I could spend half an hour later meal planning. I don't even have to do it. I could open up Chat GPT and say, make me a 5-day meal plan that has this, this, and this, but doesn't have this, this, and this, and is family friendly. And Chat GPT will do it. Then I could tell Chat GPT to make me that grocery list for that meal plan, and it'll do that too. So, brain dumping what was wrong, counteracting it with a way to fix it, not just imagining that it all disappeared into my most wonderful day. That wasn't going to work. But making this kind of list did. And here's the thing that happened. As I was sitting looking at this list and trying to decide which do I do first, which do I do today, what could I do later on, I realized that there were some categories, right? Because my brain loves to categorize things. I love charts, I love graphs. And as I looked at the list, I thought, okay, I'm really seeing three categories here. Category one are things that I can do for my health and my wellness, right? So that I can feel better, that I can wake up refreshed. I can take care of my sleep. I can take care of my meals and my eating habits. I can take care of that self-care and having time for myself. There were clear bullets that all pointed to health and wellness. There was another category that all pointed to my family and my relationships. And I would just say connections to people overall, right? I work at home. I work a lot in my basement. I'm lucky that my kids and my family are in and out all day, but I could do better in making time for those kinds of connections that are just for fun, that aren't for work, that aren't for getting things done, that are just for doing something silly that lights me up. And then the third category I saw was passion. Now, normally I might label this third category as work, right? How do I make time to get all the things done, put those important projects on the calendar, clean out the basement office so that it looks better as I'm sitting down there? But it wasn't necessarily all work. It was things that I really want to do. I want to do more yoga on my YouTube channel. I want to grow my new Substack community. And labeling them as work just didn't seem right. It's more of a passion. It's more of the legacy that I hope to leave behind in that aspect of my life. And I really loved that seeing those three categories emerge helped me choose three intentions. Now, if you've been here for a while and you listened to me around last year at this time, you realize that I don't necessarily set goals or things to accomplish. I set intentions for how I want to feel. And I do that because if I set an intention around a feeling, I could actually reach that feeling that very moment. I could choose to feel that way in an instant. Some feelings are harder than others, but it is possible. So I really like knowing that I could meet my intention or meet my so-called goal based on a feeling every single day if I choose. And so of those categories, health and family and passion, I came up with three intentions around three ways that I want to feel in 2025. Number one, I want to feel good in my body and in my own skin every single day. Number two, I want to feel connected to my family, to my friends, and those around me. And number three, I want to feel more joy and more courage to try new things that I love. Those are my three. My dumpster fire of a day, which sent me to a therapeutic expressive writing session in my notebook, ended up choosing not just my three intentions around how I want to feel for the year, but it gave me a concrete, tangible list for how to actually reach it. I couldn't believe how much better I felt at the end of the page. And of course, my next step was to think, how can I bring this to life in another way? So I've got my feelings, I've got my list of things to do. I can clearly see that writing is going to help me. So you know where I'm going with this. What books can I read that help me feel those three things? You know, I love creating book apothecaries, which are basically TBR stacks of books that are perfect for us to read in this moment in time to help us feel and be and do whatever we want to feel and be and do. So for me, as I started thinking about what those books might be, if we go into the health and wellness category, I know I want to revisit You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, this wonderful science and wooey book about how you are actually more in control than you think. And I also want to read a new book to me, although it was published a couple of years ago. I just found Dr. Lee on the Mel Robbins podcast, and so I really want to read Eat to Beat Disease, the new science of how your body can heal itself, right? So we see those themes of healing in those two book choices. Now, if you are like me and you want to build those family connections and those friend connections, I do recommend that you read a book titled The 12 Months of Christmas by Sheila Roberts. I know the holiday season is over, but in this book, this group of women pledge to celebrate Christmas all year long because their original Christmas didn't go as planned. And so they want 12 more tries to get it right. And in those 12 more tries, there's family, there's friendship, there's found family, there's fun, there's food, there's connection. There are so many things. And so this is a great book to think about those family and friend connections. I also have Mel Robbins's new book, The Let Them Theory, on my TBR for this friends and family aspect of my apothecary, right? So there's the let them theory, which says, let people be them. Let them do what they want to do. Let them be who they want to be. Maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't, but you don't get to decide, right? So let them act the way they will act. And then the next part, let me decide what to do about that. It's a great theory that I love and I can't wait to wrap my head around. And so I think it's perfect for thinking about how to build better connections by letting people be who they are, letting you be who you are, and deciding to take responsibility for any mismatches that are there, not by fixing or changing, but by releasing and choosing something different for yourself. The greatest theory ever. I can't wait to dive into it. Now, the last one is passion. And there is one book on my personal book apothecary that is related to this, and it's Suleika Jaouad's The Book of Alchemy, a creative practice for an inspired life. Now, you may know Suleika because she wrote Between Two Kingdoms, that New York Times best-selling book about her journey with cancer. She also has an incredibly successful Substack called the Isolation Journals that I talk about often. And this book is her latest work of heart, I would say. And I cannot wait for it to be released. I can't read it yet. It still has, I believe, a month or so before it comes out, but you can bet that I pre-ordered that as a way to support her and as a way to build my own book apothecary around what I discovered on the page. So if you haven't set your intentions, or even if you have, maybe you try this. Or if you're just having a really crappy day and you need to shift your mindset and switch the way that you're thinking, this might do it. I've talked about ways to support our mental health in our notebooks previously on the podcast, but I have to say that this new one that I stumbled on in desperation of a hard moment is definitely my current favorite. So use it now to help at this season of year, or save it so that when you're having a bad day, you can go back to those saved and downloaded episodes in your podcast platform and listen again and get out that sheet of paper. Now, I'd also love if you think of someone else in your life that might benefit from this kind of technique, from dumpster fire day to a notebook list, to a better notebook list, to a book suggestion, to a better tomorrow. Take a screenshot of this episode and send it to them. Or just click that little share arrow button in your podcast platform and text it to them and say, I think you might like this. Or let's save this for when we need a little pick me up. It's shockingly effective and one that I know I'm going to return to again and again and again. So I would love to hear from you. Will you try this? And if you do try it, share with me what comes up on the page. Did it help you choose those intentions for whatever season of life you're in a bit more naturally or a bit easier? Did it help you shift your mindset from having the negative Groundhog Day replay to the possibility that we're actually in charge and can truly choose a different tomorrow? This one was a game changer for me, and I do hope that it becomes a game changer for you too. Let me know in the comments for this episode. You can head to alitlife.com, click on the icon for this episode, and leave your comments there. You can find me on social media at AfinitoLit and leave your comments on the social post. Or as always, click that little audio button and leave me an audio message. I love listening to them. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. I hope that you have your 2025 notebook stack ready to go. And now you have a go-to expressive journaling method that's going to help you choose intentions for your current season of life and help you reap all those wonderful physical, cognitive, and emotional benefits of putting pencil to paper. I hope you have a wonderful week full of reading and writing, and I will see you next week in the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking inspiration, live events, giveaways, and more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all of the previous content too. Learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing, if you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and it builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks for listening.